Now, before leaving this section and moving to the gaining access section, where I'm going to teach you how to break the different encryptions and gain access to networks, I want to spend one more lecture talking about a really useful attack that still falls under the pre-connection attacks under this section. The attack that I want to talk about is the deauthentication attack. This attack allows us to disconnect any device from any network before connecting to any of these networks and without the need to know the password for the network. To do this, we're going to pretend to be the client that we want to disconnect by changing our MAC address to the MAC address of that client and tell the router that I want to disconnect from you. Then we're going to pretend to be the router, again by changing our MAC address to the router's MAC address, and tell the client that you requested to be disconnected, so I'm going to disconnect you. This will allow us to successfully disconnect or deauthenticate any client from any network. Now, we're actually not going to do this manually. We're going to use a tool called replay.ng to do that. From the previous lecture, we know that this MAC address right here belongs to an Apple computer, and like I said, this Apple computer is actually my computer right here. And as you can see, this host machine is connected to this network right here, which is the same as the one that you see in here, and it actually has internet access. So if I just look for test, you'll see that I'm connected and I can look for things, I can use Google, so I have a proper working internet connection. Now, we're going to come back here and we're going to use a tool called replay.ng to launch the deauthentication attack and disconnect this Mac computer from the internet. So we're going to type the name of the program, which is replay.ng. We're going to tell it that I want to run a deauthentication attack. Then I'm going to give it the number of deauthentication packets that I want to send. So I'm going to give it a really large number so that it keeps sending these packets to both the router and the target device. Therefore, I'll disconnect my target device for a very long period of time, and the only way to get it back to connect is to hit Ctrl+C and quit replay.ng. Next, I'm gonna give replay.ng the MAC address of my target network. So I'm gonna do -A and give it the MAC address, which I'm gonna copy from here. Then I'm gonna use -C to give it the MAC address of the client that I want to disconnect. And the client that I want to disconnect is this client right here, which is the Apple computer, like we said. So I'm gonna copy it and paste it here. And finally, I'm gonna give it the name of my wireless adapter in monitor mode, and in my case, it's called Mon0. So a very simple command. We're typing replay.ng. This is the name of the program that we're going to use. We're doing --deauth to tell replay.ng that I want to run a deauthentication attack. I'm giving it a really large number of packets so that it keeps sending the deauthentication packets to both the router and the client and keep the client disconnected. I'm using -A to specify the MAC address of the target router or the target access point. Then I'm using -C to specify the MAC address of the client. Finally, I'm giving it Mon0, which is the name of my wireless adapter in monitor mode. Now you can run this command like this, and in most cases it would work, but in very rare cases this command will fail unless dump-ng is running against the target network. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my first terminal in here, and I'm going to run dump-ng using the command that we've seen before. And I don't want to write anything to a file, so I'm going to remove the write argument. So I'm just doing a normal dump-ng command. I'm literally just giving it the BSS ID of my target network, and I'm giving it the target channel. And then I'm just going to hit enter. We've seen how to do this. We spent a full lecture on it. That's why I did it really quick. And then I'm going to go back to the command that we wrote so far, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, as you can see, AirPlay NG, it's telling me that it's sending the deauthentication packets. And if we go back here and look up, you can see that I actually lost my connection and I'm trying to connect back. So obviously, if I try to look for anything, so let's say test2, you'll see I'll get stuck and nothing will load for me. So the only way for me to connect back is if I go back here, if I quit this by doing Ctrl+C, quit this again, and now my machine should be able to connect back and restore its connection. This is actually very handy in so many ways. It's very useful in social engineering cases where you could disconnect clients from the target network and then call the user and pretend to be a person from the IT department and ask them to install a virus or a backdoor, telling them that this would fix their issue. You could also create another fake access point and get them to connect to the fake access point and then start spying on them from that access point. And we'll see how to do that later on in the course. And you can also use this to capture the handshake, which is what happened in here actually. And this is vital when it comes to WPA cracking. And we'll talk about this once we get to the WPA cracking section. So, like I said, this is a small attack that can be used as a plugin to other attacks or to make other attacks possible.